You're watching SBA Today. With all the latest news, stories, and advice, here are your hosts, Paul Long and Tonya Mazurek.
And welcome to SBA Today, sponsored by SBA Collective. For the week of April 28th, I am Paul Long.
And I am Tonya Mazurek. And as you can see on this screen here, we have a very special guest. So I want to give you, before we do the full-on intro, I want to give you his background because it's pretty freaking impressive. All right, we've got Joe Raycraft. Joe works at the U.S. Small Business Administration as finance manager for the New England region, and is part of SBA's Office of Manufacturing and Trade, formerly known as the Office of International Trade. Joe joined SBA in 2020 after more than 20 years working in commercial lending and international banking. For you lenders out there, think everything that we do, right? And that's transferable skills, Anyway, as finance manager, Joe works to promote SBA's specialty working capital and export loan programs through direct outreach to SBA partner lender banks and SBA's resource partner network. Joe brings more than 25 years of private sector business experience, including international roles in the areas of manufacturing, that's what he's doing now, commercial, finance, and banking. Most recently, Joe worked at a Connecticut community bank where he supported small businesses. Joe earned his bachelor's in finance from Babson College, a master's in international affairs from Ohio University, and he served as a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic. Wow, at that bio. First, thank you for your service, because we want to thank you for your service as far as with that. And also, that those transferable skills, man, everything in your background, in your past sets you up as the perfect person in this position to help us all. Anyway, Joe, say hello.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here, and thank both of you for having me and for everything you do to promote SBA lending. I think it's a great program. I've watched a bunch of your episodes and just look forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Hopefully everyone has listened and watched the 7A Connect call that was earlier this week. And that's what triggered this conversation, is because obviously a big focus of the SBA Connect call was the changes on the international trade loan and all the different new programs. And rather than have Tonya and I come up with what we think we heard, we just thought we would just bring the horse and say, here you go.
So the horse, we'll be the cart behind you.
Right. So definitely, I would probably say, 50% of the 7A Connect call was related to this. And, we would really want to hear from you, Joe, about, tell us a little bit about some of the changes that are coming to that program, and really share with us what is new and different in the program.
So as you guys know, a lot of changes at SBA recently with different programs, right? We've got the MARC program, Manufacturers Access to Revolving Credit, came out in October, just as we went into the shutdown. We've got some updates on our working capital pilot, and now we've got the improved ITL, which we're going to talk about today. And as you guys have mentioned in your previous, I know Tonya really likes the ITL program, and let's call it the enhanced ITL program, because it's not new. It's an existing program that we've just kind of tweaked a little bit. It's also known as the Grocery Guarantee, and it's also known as the Made in America Loan Guarantee Program. So it all means the same thing. It's our enhanced ITL program. It's basically an existing SBA term loan program that was originally designed to support exporters and to help them with financing to support their international growth. So with the ITL, we always had, next to that was the Export Working Capital Program. So those were the two main export loan programs: Export Working Capital for the short term, and ITL for the longer term, asset needs. Both of those come with a 90% guarantee. So that increases the maximum guarantee to $4.5 million. up from the 3.75, which is your standard 75% guarantee. So that's certainly a benefit. And this newly expanded ITL will go live this Friday, May 1st. I know we've got a few of the deals in the pipeline already that we're starting to look at. So I think this is going to be a program that hopefully lenders will prescribe to. So with the expanded ITL, it supports critical manufacturing sector as well as the food supply chain sector that SBA has determined that these industries have been impacted by imports to some degree. I think in one of your last programs, you mentioned financing farm to port. I thought that was a really good analogy of what we're trying to do here, right? So we're this expanded ITL for the food supply sector is really geared towards a number of different NAICS codes. So it ranges from farming to food producers to wholesalers to distributors to grocery stores, supermarkets. It really the gamut. And we've got, I think, 21 specific NAICS codes that are included in the policy notice that went out a couple weeks ago from the SBA. So those particular NAICS codes within the food supply sector, those are automatically eligible for the ITL program, as well as the manufacturers. So NAICS codes 31 to 33.
So let's stop there just for a sec, just because it's different, right? Those programs are completely and totally or slightly different, right? Excuse me, the manufacturing and what's going on with manufacturing versus, let's say the grocery. Talk about the food to farm or the farm to table, basically, or whatnot, of how that's going to affect it and how people are going to look up their NAICS codes, why this was set into place by the
Okay,
SBA.
so for the NAICS codes, you're gonna have to, and we can circulate something, but it's on the policy notice that SBA sent out, and again, wide range of different types of businesses within the food supply chain. So why was it done? I think it was really to support companies, right? The supply chains have been a little bit disrupted ever since COVID. And we're also trying to, again, it's part of the Make More in America. So it's really to try to reshore some of these supply chains. Right. And SBA has, as part of their Made in America initiative, there's also some portals that have been created on our website. Mm-hmm. So a company can go there to search for U.S. suppliers or manufacturers of certain goods so that they can essentially reshore their supply chain here. So the idea of this financing is to support the manufacturers, the food supply chain, in order to help them to grow or retool or modernize their equipment, increase inventory levels. So it's really the use of proceeds is kind of wide open, right? It's really any real legitimate business need, just like our 7A program.
Got it.
That's
Which
awesome.
is slightly different than, say, the export program in a lot of ways, the original export program. Correct. Because that one was very specific towards how are you expanding in the export sector. And I think that's what some people may not understand. This is different than that. This is expanding any business need, right? In order to.
Correct. We also want to demonstrate the loan should demonstrate that it's going to improve the competitive position of the business, right? And that was always one of the requirements of the export part of ITL. So there's two different criteria for eligibility. One is the export expansion and development, the one you just mentioned, Tonya. That's what we've always done. And now we've got this, let's call it adverse impact, or companies that are adversely impacted by import competition. That's not a new criteria for ITL. It's always been there. It just hasn't been quite defined as it is today with the specific NAICS codes. And we may see that NAICS code list grow in the future, but right now it's limited to the 21 NAICS codes. And if a company is not listed, if their NAICS code is not listed, they can, make a case to their lender
Really?
that they should be, that they can demonstrate that their NAICS code or their business industry has suffered the same way as some of these other industries, and they can document that with, financials or other types of, reporting documentation to show some impact to their business or impact to sales.
And just to confirm, is this a PLP program, or is this everything that has to be submitted GP?
PLP. It's PLP.
Okay, so you just really got to document if you are going to go outside of those NAICS codes.
Correct. And there is a process if a bank needs a waiver or an exception.
Got it.
Again, that can always be done through the SBA delegated loan apps email.
And I can see that happening because I've seen a couple different things. One, people don't always put, honestly, the correct NAICS codes whenever they're filing. And then it comes back and it's like, well, you really should have been in this one. So I've seen that multiple times. But I love the fact there's some exception in there, because in any program, especially when it's starting out, specific things. They're out there, it's visible, you understand it. And then all of a sudden you see the others that pop in and how it affects the whole program in general. So I could see, I love the fact that we've got some exception.
And I want to add in something else here that I've kind of heard in my SBA circles. And that is, trucking's on there. Okay. Well, then I can do 90% guarantee for trucking. Okay. But they made it very clear on the 7A Connect call, it's got to be related to food on there. So just because you're, I don't know, I'm just going to make up FedEx route that, hey, there's probably food in some of these boxes. No, that is not the spirit of that. And SBA is not going to be okay with that. So it really has to go towards the food.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing it up. I had a note on that. Yes, okay, so it's specific food related, transportation, logistics. Again, you've got refrigerated truck. That's the spirit of it. And I know that, you guys are very much into the credit underwriting and prudent lending. And I really appreciate, all your comments on that. So really, the underwriting for the ITL, it's laid out in our SOP. It's very much the same as standard 7A loans. We talked about the business plan requirement for export development criteria. For the adversely affected criteria, there's no need for a business plan, right? But you would need to provide, 2 years of projection. So that's going to be a requirement. Again, that's part of our underwriting within the ITL SOP.
I want to dive on that just a little bit further, because this is a hot button with lenders. And that is, okay, I'll even just say it. I'm afraid to do the program because I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up. Okay. So when it comes to, and I'm more worried about when is a business plan required and when is it not? Can you really hone in on that for me, Joe?
And I'm gonna add on that, Paul, because is it business? Are you speaking business plan in general, or are you speaking like the export business plan that you had to have on the other program?
I'm sorry, you're 100%.
It was they're separate.
Correct. A business plan's a business plan, but an export business plan, okay, if I'm a lender and I haven't done one of those specifically, when is it needed? When is it not? And is that really the only difference between getting a higher guarantee? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's, again, for the export development criteria, you need to have that export business plan. Okay. So typically, a lot of times a company will have kind of their general business plan or their corporate profile, and then they have a few extra pages are added as the export plan, and that's completely fine. In this case, we're not looking, and it's not supporting exports. So we're not looking for a specific export business plan. It's not required.
Okay.
Again, I think it's always good practice for a company
Oh,
to
100%.
have that business plan or that corporate profile that talks about the business and how they, how they go to market and who are their customers and, all the good stuff.
For sure.
So that's important, but no specific business planning to demonstrate, again, like adversely affected by imports. They already qualify.
Got it.
Okay, so I got a question
That's
because
weird. That's
Josh
affecting me too.
Brewer,
Okay.
Josh Brewer out there is asking NAICS code or NAICS code. I'm wondering if he's meaning NAICS the codes or NAICS code. But I know Josh actually is in the brewing business. Does this fall under it? Our brewers out there, or is this just our restaurants and grocery stores and whatnot? How is that going to?
That's a good question. I'm gonna turn to my my listing
Handy.
here.
We all have cheat sheets. It's crucial.
Well, I mean,
No, I
that's the
don't.
crazy thing in this, guys. I mean, if anybody says they know everything up front, run.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
scary.
amen.
Absolutely.
I don't. I know the SOP very well, and I still go back to it because I'm like, wait a minute, was that in 10:06 or 50:10:6? Was that 50:10:7? What's my brain saying? So we all have to have it. But anyway, so what'd you
Yeah,
find?
so I don't see brewing on the list. So here's
Ooh.
what I would say. I would respond to that, but also it was kind of to respond to your earlier question about business planning and other requirements. And usually you always leave your contact information for the end. But we've got 13 regional finance managers around the country. So you're in your region. And that's what we do. We connect with lenders. Again, we're considered kind of the working capital experts, but we also have always done the trade financing, and we're kind of that hybrid role. So encourage lenders to read your local finance manager and talk about things. Maybe they can provide additional training on the programs, but also advise on specific transactions and deal structuring and requirements. I mean, that's key. And it may be, again, for the brewery, maybe the result is, well, you know what, we probably should send this in for a possible exception because we think maybe it makes sense. Maybe the brewer can provide some documentation demonstrating,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's been impacted.
Well, okay. Now I'm going to follow on this one because this is how these shows go. We just kind of get off on our own little train of thought there. Reason being, think about it. I mean, wheat and all the different things that go into producing the beer, they're all eligible. And if they're all sending it and the vast majority is going for, let's say, brewing, I mean,
Maybe.
some might call a beer food.
Oh.
I don't know. But anyway, I mean, I can see that might be one that over time might get added. Anyway. No problem,
agree
Josh.
with you.
Any other final words on the program? What is that thing that you want to really make sure that lenders walk away from on this program?
And I'm going to have a few more questions, so give your final words.
Okay.
Okay. I would say, certainly, take advantage of the program. Don't chase the 90% guarantee because it's a 90% guarantee. Paul, on your, you're always talking about credit risk and prudent lending. And, I treat it like it's my money, right? And I think that's really good practice. But when it comes to these deals, make sure it fits. And again, talk to your finance manager. Make sure they're on board. They're gonna be in your corner for this deal. So that's really important to communicate and make sure you're kind of struck. Not that these types of transactions need a lot of structuring, but it's really important to have that open communication, I think, with our finance managers in the field.
So my add to that, because it's perfect and goes right into a couple of the questions I wanted to ask anyway, that just kind of came to me as we were talking. Now, when I have done the export ITL, right? I mean, oftentimes people have come to me after being at other banks, and yet nothing was ever brought up about the international trade loan. And yet when you talk to them, you hear, oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm sending this here, or I've sent this overseas, or I'm sending this to, this wholesaler, and everything from that wholesaler gets shipped overseas, right? But many miss that in the conversation. The borrowers don't recognize what to ask sometimes, and the lenders sometimes just kind of miss some of the questions potentially that could help. In this respect, what should lenders be asking potentially, and what should borrowers be looking for?
Again, on the export side, lenders should be asking, more questions about the business, who they're doing business with. Are they exporting? Do they have foreign receivables on their balance sheet? Are they selling indirectly overseas? Are they selling to a customer that, ultimately exports their product? That helps to qualify them for an international trade loan via indirect exporting, which Tonya, you just kind of described. So I think that's kind of the key, is just kind of learning as much as you possibly can about the business as a lender, and making sure that you can fit them in either an export development category or the adversely affected. And again, if it's adversely affected and their NAICS code isn't there, maybe you want to dive a little deeper, or they can do that standard 7A too. It doesn't mean they're not eligible for SBA. It just means maybe they're not eligible for the ITL loan.
Exactly. Awesome. Wow. That's really helpful, because quite honestly, I don't know. Paul, how about you?
No, very helpful. And again, I guess where I'm always at is, is the to get a 90% guarantee. It's not just, oh, we're just going to increase it to 90%. There's always, it's 90%, but period. And it sounds like to me that this is a lot more streamlined, and no, I'm not chasing the 90%, but anytime I see that, that's my thought process as a lender. This was very helpful, and makes me excited to go out there and poke a few and see on there, because again, we have great finance managers here in the Pacific Northwest, and I would do anything. I would bring them to any client call.
And just think about all those borrowers out there that have been struggling, right? Because of everything that's gone on, how much this is going to help. I really appreciate the SBA doing this one and recognizing so many that were hurt, like you said, from pandemic on, and really trying to bring something into the system that's going to help us lenders, help them, honestly, in a lot of ways. So
Exactly.
Anyway, awesome. Well, guys, thank you for joining us again on this Tuesday morning. We are going to be here again next week live right on LinkedIn and or YouTube. Would love to have you join us. Who knows who's going to be our next one on? We really appreciate you coming on, Joe, and thank you for all that you've done. Thank all of your teammates for all that they do, and we look forward to working with all of you. Also, we'll see you guys next week. Reach out to Paul or I on our personal LinkedIn pages, because we would love to connect with you. Other than that, we'll see you next Tuesday. See
you later.
Thanks. Thank you.